What's up, everyone? It's your girl Brain Shanae, and y'all already know why I'm here. We're going to discuss the Goodreads Choice Awards and who made the cut for the final round. Now, y'all already know, if y'all don't know, who I voted for or the books I voted for in the first round, which I'll still go over. But if you want to check out that video, it'll be up above. But for the first round for fiction, I chose Yellowface, which let's see if it made the cut. And it did, actually. So Yellowface made the cut for the next and final round for the Goodreads Choice Awards, which I'm very happy. And of course, I'm voting for it once again. I really love R.F. Kuang's writing, so I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go for Yellowface. It seems like that we still have a couple of books in here that could be contenders, but I really have a good feeling that Yellowface may take this win for the final round. So I'm crossing my fingers that R.F. Kuang wins this category. So I just voted for Best Fiction of 2023, and like I said, I voted for Yellowface once again. Now let's move on to the historical fiction category, which I had voted for in the first round, Let Us Descend by Jasmine Ward. And it did not make the cut for this next round. So I know, like the first round, I tried not to vote for books that I haven't read, but I want to vote for books that I know that a lot of people loved. I've asked a lot of people, like my coworkers and my friends, that have read this particular book, and so that's why I'm going to be voting for it. And I'm also going to be voting for it because I'm going to be reading it. It's a book that I want to read. So I am a little bit upset that Let Us Descend did not make the cut for this final round, but I am still going to be voting for this particular category. So this particular category, I'm going to be voting for The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride. This was also one of the books that won for Barnes & Noble, one of the best books of 2023, I believe. And so I'm going to vote for this book. I really hope like it wins for sure. Like I see there's other contenders in this book for sure that I think could also take this category, which is like The House of Eve by Sonequa Johnson. The Covenant of Water by Abraham Verghese. I feel like those are two contenders, and possibly Did You Hear About Kitty Carr by Crystal Smith Paul. I find that 3 of those books are definitely top contenders. And if The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride doesn't win, I hope the other 3 do. I really do. So for this final round, I'm going to be voting for The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride. But yeah, I'm really disappointed that Let Us Descend did not make it. I was really shocked, but then I wasn't surprised because the book literally just came out not too long ago. I have a feeling a lot of people did not get a chance to read it. So yeah, I feel like it just did not make the cut, and that's really sad. But let's move on to the next category, and that is Best Mystery and Thriller. And for the first round, I had voted for S.A. Cosby, All the Sinners Bleed. And so and it made the cut for this final round. So I'm going to be voting for S.A. Cosby, All the Sinners Bleed. I'm like, I really have high hopes for this book. I know some people love Riley Sager. Well, people really didn't. From what I've heard, people either loved it or hated this book, and this was the only one left by Riley Sager. I think some people were like, about it, but then I know another contender is None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell, I think is a contender. So if All the Sinners Bleed does not win, I think that Lisa Jewell, None of This Is True, probably will take the win for this one. That is my prediction anyway. I'm not sure. It could go either way, it could go either way. But for me, I'm voting for All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby because I love his writing so much. So yeah, that's the one I'm going to be voting for this next round or final round for Best Mystery and Thriller. Y'all already know how I felt about romance. I'm not surprised. Like, Emily Henry made the cut. Allie Hazelwood made the cut, of course. You know, you have Lauren Asher for the final offer, who had made the cut. I'm glad that Anna Huang had made the cut, because she's a, you know, out of BIPOC, only BIPOC author in this category. Like, literally the only one. So I really hope that if you know, King of Pride, I really hope that she does win. But like I said, you have Emily Henry in here, you know, The Happy Place. You have, like I said, Allie Hazelwood, Love Theoretically. And then you also have Lauren Asher, you know, The Final Offer. And honestly, I have a feeling it's one of those four, in my opinion. I haven't read any of these books. I have high hopes for Anna Huang because she's a BIPOC author, but I do see, like, from based off of where I work, a lot of people were loving Final Offer by Lauren Asher. People love Allie Hazelwood, and one of my coworkers loves Emily Henry. And so we shall see. But I think out of one of those four would definitely be the ones I think that will end up being the winner. So there you have romance. I already had my little moment when it came to this, like how those, like in the first round, how those were the only books that they chose when there was so many more romances out there that came out in 2023, and this was what we had to work with. This was the only books we could only vote for, and the fact that we couldn't even like write in the books that we want to vote for, we couldn't do that this year. That just blows my mind. But you know, Goodreads just never gets it right. Every year, just always something with them. But anyway, let's move on to the next category, which is romantasy. And for the first round, I had voted for Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer, and it made the cut for this final round. So I'm going to be once again voting for Assistant to the Villain. But there's a heavy hitters here. Like, I've just read well, this is the second book in the series, but I recently read Carissa Broadbent, and I read the first book in the duology, which is The Serpent and the Wings of Night, which I loved. If the first book was in this category and it made the final round, I probably would end up voting for that one. But I haven't read the second book by Carissa Broadbent, which is in this category, so I'm not going to be voting for it. But I love the first one, and I'm excited to read the second book, to be honest with you, because I just recently read it. I read it this past weekend, and I loved it. Right when I got the book, I started reading it, and it was hard to put down because I wanted to know what happened next. So it was really good. But like I said, there's heavy contenders, heavy contenders in this particular category. Like Fourth Wing. People love Fourth Wing. I haven't heard much about just Odd Air. Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco. I feel like that is a heavy contender that could possibly win. Zodiac Academy, maybe. I'm not sure. A lot of people loved it. A lot of people hated the series, to be honest with y'all. And then you have Jennifer L. Armentrout. So there's heavy hitters in this category, but I hope that Assistant to the Villain ends up taking the win. But I have a feeling, I'm just going to be completely honest with y'all, that's probably going to be ending up to be Fourth Wing as to be the winner for Best Romantasy. Just keep it 100 with y'all. Just keep it at 100. That's just how I feel, and I think that's how it's going to go, to be quite honest with you all. But I'm going to be voting for Assistant to the Villain once again for Best Romantasy. But let's move on to fantasy. And so the first round, I had voted for The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty, and she made the cut. She made the cut for this final round. So y'all already know. I'm going to be voting for this book once again. But heavy contenders. And I recently found out, by Emily Wild's Encyclopedia of Fairies. People really love that book, so that's a heavy contender. We still have Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson, heavy contender. V. Swab, heavy contender for sure. Cassandra Clare with Swordcatcher, I'm not sure. I heard some mixed things about it, but I don't know. I don't know. You have Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree, which people, it's a heavy contender. It definitely is, especially since it's the second book to Legends and Lattes, which everybody loved, and I still haven't read it. Don't judge me. So I figured that would be a heavy contender. It did come out later, like a little bit, not too long ago, but I'm not sure. I'm sure people probably read it. Of course, you have Lee Bardugo with Hellbent as well. You also have The Day of the Fallen Knight by Samantha Shannon, which I don't know if it's that much of a heavy hitter, but it may be, who knows. But for me, I'm voting for The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty for this category for best fantasy. But let's go on to science fiction, shall we? So y'all already know with the first round, I did not vote because I didn't read any of the books, but I was doing a lot of research. I talked to a couple people that I know that loves books. I feel like this particular book, I think, is a heavy contender. I think it has the ability to possibly win. Possibly. I know we still have TJ Klune in the Lives of Puppets in this category, so we'll see. But I didn't read this book, but I have it. I physically have this book, and I've talked to some people about it, and I did my research on it, and like I'll even read the synopsis. But I ended up voting in this category for this final round, and I voted for Chain Gang All Stars by Nana Kwame Adeji Brinya. I hope I'm saying the author's name right. If not, I do apologize. But I loved what it represents and what the story it's providing and it's portraying, which is why I'm going to read the synopsis. So it says, two top women gladiators fight for their freedom within a depraved private prison system not so far removed from America's own. And then it goes on to saying, Loretta Thoreau and Hamara Hurricane Stacker are the stars of Chain Gang All-Stars, the cornerstone of CAPE, or Criminal Action Penal Entertainment, a highly popular, highly controversial profit-raising program in America's increasingly dominant private prison industry. It's the return of the gladiators, and prisoners are competing for the ultimate prize, their freedom. In CAPE, prisoners travel as links in chain gangs, competing in death matches for packed arenas with righteous protesters at the gates. Thorwar and Stax, both teammates and lovers, are the fan favorites, and if all goes well, Thorwar will be free in just a few matches, a fact she carries as heavily as her lethal hammer. As she prepares to leave her fellow links, she considers how she might help preserve their humanity. In defiance of these so-called games, but CAPE's corporate owners will stop at nothing to protect their status quo, and the obstacles they lay in Thorwar's path have devastating consequences. And then it moves on to saying, moving from the links in the field to the protectors to the CAPE employees and beyond, Chain Gang All-Stars is a kaleidoscopic, excruciating look at the American prison system's unholy alliance of systemic racism, unchecked capitalism, and mass incarceration, and a clear-eyed reckoning with what freedom in this country really means. And so just for what it represents, what it's talking about, what it's portraying, and what it's sharing with us when it comes to the American prison system, and I feel like it brings awareness to that, I'm voting for it. So that's why I'm voting this time for this particular book. I did my research. I talked to a few people about it, and I definitely am looking forward to reading this book in the future, which I plan on doing so since I do have it, the physical book. So that is why I'm voting for this particular book for best science fiction. I like what the story is sharing and the awareness that it's giving. So even if you haven't picked up the book, and I feel like maybe since I read a synopsis, you may have felt intrigued, which I was intrigued right away, 100%. So definitely check out the book, see what you think. But I think I'm voting for it. So yes, so for the final round for best science fiction, I'm voting for Chain Gang All Stars. So this is the book that I'm going to be voting for this category and final round. But yeah, so I hope it wins. But like I said, there's other contesters in here. You still have Lightbringer by Pierce Brown that wrote Red Rising, which I feel like maybe that is the only contender, well, besides TJ Klune, that I think is the only one. So it's either, I would say, Pierce Brown, TJ Klune, or like the one I voted for, Chain Gang All Stars. So we shall see. But let's move on to the next category, which I'm really, really, I'm just really in like, I'm very just confused. And like one of my, like I watch book, like TikTok all the time. And one of my, like my favorite TikTokers, he always look, you know, he reviews people and how they cook their food and stuff. And he'd be like, I'm all confusion. In this particular category, I am all confusion. I was all confusion with romance already. But now we have best horror, and I do not see Reformatory by Tananarive Due, which that means it did not make the cut for best horror, and I'm highly, highly upset about it. But anyways, so I voted for an alternative. So I ended up voting, since Reformatory did not make the cut, which that's the one that I voted for in the first round. I have this book I'm still going to end up reading. I want to read this, and I've heard great things about this particular author, which I still haven't read, which I'm going to. So, but I voted for Lone Women by Victor Laval. Yes, I did. Yes, I have not read this book, but I have this book, and I heard some people loved it. Some people may have hated it, but you know, the fact that they took away the Reformatory, like I said, I'm just, yeah, I'm all in my feelings right now. So for this category for best horror, I'm going to go with Lone Women by Victor Laval. There's other heavy hitters in this, like a Silver Nitrate by Sylvia Marina Garcia, which was another thing I was thinking of voting for. But I do want to read that. I have that book and I do want to read it. But I feel like there's the heavy contender here. I think people love the September House by Carissa Orlando. I think people also I think they liked Our Share of Night by Mariana Enriquez. I'm not really sure about, I know Grady Hendrix, people loved his other previous book, but I'm not sure if they loved How to Sell a Haunted House. I haven't heard a lot of people talking about it. You know, we still have Stephen King here, you know, T. Kingfisher. So there's a lot of heavy hitters in this particular category. But once again, I'm going to be voting for Lone Women for Best Horror by Victor Laval. So there you have it. Sorry that I was doing a whole spiel, but I'm just sharing how I feel. Okay, so the next category is for Best Young Adult Fantasy and Science Fiction. For first round, I chose Blood Debts, and I'm looking here, and unfortunately, it did not make the cut. I'm highly upset about it, but it is what it is. So then I'm going to go with the other book that I read this year that I really loved, and I'm looking forward to the next book in this duology. And so I voted for Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. Yes. Since Blood Debts didn't make it to the final round, the next one that I'm voting for, like I said, is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. There are some heavy contenders in here like Chloe Gong, Foul Heart Huntsman, which I'm looking forward to read. This is a new book that just recently came out. It's called Powerless by Lauren Roberts, but it reads like when I read, like, let me just read the synopsis because it sounds so familiar to a book that I feel like most of us has read or probably never going to read, but you've heard about it. But it says, she is the very thing he spent his whole life hunting. He is the very thing she spent her whole life pretending to be. Only the extraordinary belong in the kingdom of Ilya. The exceptional, the empowered, the elites. It says the powers these elites have possessed for decades were graciously gifted to them by the plague, though not all were fortunate enough to both survive the sickness and reap the reward. Those born ordinary are just that, ordinary. And when the king decreed that all ordinaries be banished in order to preserve his elite society, lacking in ability suddenly became a crime, making Padin Gray a felon by fate and a thief by necessity. Surviving in the slums as an ordinary in no simple task, and Padin knows this better than most. Having been trained by her father to be overly observant since she was a child, Padin poses as a psychic in a crowded city, blending in with the elites as best she can in order to stay alive and out of trouble. Easier said than done. And then it goes on to say, when Padin unsuspectedly saves one of Ilya's princes, she finds herself thrown into the purging trials. The brutal competition exists to showcase the elite's powers, the very thing Padin lacks. If the trials and the opponents within them don't kill her, the prince she's fighting feelings for certainly will if he discovers what she is, completely ordinary. So it sort of gave me like Wings and Roses for ACOTAR, you know, it sort of gave me those type of vibes. So it seemed a little bit familiar from other books that I've read and heard about, but I think people have loved it. So that's, I guess, probably will be a heavy contender as well. You still have Stolen Air by Holly Black as well. You have Fox Love by Adeline Grace, and you also have A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. So there's a lot of contenders in here. There's a lot of potentials, but I have faith in Divine Rivals because I love that book, and I know for a fact, like, a lot of my coworkers loved it too. They were obsessed with it. So yeah, so like I said, I'm be voting for Divine Rivals for Best Young Adult Fantasy and Science Fiction. Now let's move on to Young Adult. I was definitely very, very upset with this one because in the first round, I had voted for We Deserve Monuments by Jas Hammonds, and that didn't make the cut for this next and final round. So I voted for the next best thing that I've read this year, and that was The Davenports by Crystal Marquise, which I loved, and I love so much. I did a book review about it, which I'll leave it up above, but I hope that The Davenports makes it, but I'm not really for certain. I'm not really for certain at all. But there we have it. Like, I voted for The Davenports for Best Young Adult Fiction for this particular category. So let's move on to the next category, and that is debut novel. In the first round, I did not vote, particularly because I did not read any of these books, but I did, like, for this particular category, I did some research on one of the books, and I felt like maybe this will be a potential winner, possibly, I'm not sure. So I ended up voting for Mame by Jessica George. I've heard it's going to be either a movie or a TV series, but it came out a little bit earlier this year, I think in January particularly, and I thought, like, I don't know, I thought, it sounded good from the synopsis and everything that I've read about it. So I ended up voting for Mame for this category for Best Debut Novel. So let's move on to nonfiction. Now, I didn't vote in nonfiction because I didn't really read any of these books particularly, and I didn't really do any research about any of them. And so I'm not going to be voting for this in this category for this final round. But I see some potentials. I've heard people talk about How Far the Light Reaches, which, and I think this is like for sea creatures. It says A Life in 10 Sea Creatures. And so I think a lot of people were very interested in this one for sure. So it may win, may win this category, or it might be Poverty by America by Matthew Desmond, which I also feel like that's a contender. But I think out of all the books, the heavy contenders would be those two books plus 8 Rules of Love by Jay Shetty. So we'll see what happens. We shall see. We never know. And then for memoirs, like, okay, I didn't vote for this category, but I know that Kerry Washington's book was in this category and it did not make the cut. And I'm really like wondering why this particular book made the final round, because I know for a fact a lot of people did not like it and they were not a fan of this book. I do not know why Spare made it to the final round. I do not know why. And it bothers me, as you can tell. Like, I really, let me just look here. Okay. Well, when I read this book, I saw like 1 to 2 stars, but maybe it's changed since this book came out in January and people have read it since then. But I don't know why this made it to the final round. I'm like, did y'all read this book? Oh man. It better not win. That's all I gotta say. I'd rather have somebody else in this category, or Elliot Page, or Britney Spears, or Pamela Anderson, even Paris Hilton. No, or actually, Jill Duggar, Counting the Cost. I'd rather have them win than Spare Prince Harry. Excuse me. No. But anyway, let's move on. So for Best History and Biography, I also didn't vote for this. This is a memoir and biography. Did not vote for any book in this category, but I do feel like either The Wager or King, A Life by Jonathan Eigg is going to be the winner. I don't see Elon Musk winning, but if he wins, I'm like, Goodreads, we need to have a talk. We need to have a discussion, because no. So I'm really hoping for either The Wager or King, A Life. I haven't read neither one of these books, but I do look forward to reading The Wager by David Graham. It sounds really good and interesting, so I'm here for it. And then humor, I also didn't vote in this particular category, but I do see some heavy contenders. I'm really hoping for Leslie Jones books to win, which is Leslie effing Jones memoir. So I really hope that either that book wins or the world record book of racist stories. And this is by Amber Ruffin and Lacey Lamar. So either one of those books, I really hope that it comes out winning, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, so those are all the books that I'm voting for this last and final round for the Goodreads Choice Awards. We shall see. You shall see me again as they tally up all the votes, and we're gonna see who are the winners of Best Fiction, Best Historical Fiction, Best Mystery Thriller, Best Romance, Romantasy, Fantasy, Science Fiction, Horror, Young Adult Fantasy and Science Fiction, Young Adult Fiction, Debut Novel, Nonfiction, Memoir and Biography, History and Biography, and Humor. We shall see who came out on top, who became the winners of each and every one of these categories. But thank you all for watching. I know I was rambling a lot, and I was sharing with y'all a couple of synopses of a couple of books that I've researched on and talked to people about. But you know, Goodreads Choice Awards, they never seem to surprise me, you know, with their actions that they do with romance, in the category of romance, the fact that there's no middle grade category, there's no poetry category, there's no graphic novel category. So, you know, and the fact that we can't write in the books that we actually want to vote for them to be contenders in this Goodreads Choice Awards, you know, but it is what it is. They never seem to surprise me. It's every year there is something with them, and I feel like that's always going to be a thing with them. They don't obviously listen to people. They don't hear each other. Like, they expanded, but then they took away. Like, you brought Romantasy in here. Okay, cool. But then getting rid of something is not cool at the same time. Like, expand, but don't take categories away. You know, don't do that. But once again, you know, you shall see me again when we know the results and who became the winners of the Goodreads Choice Award for each and every one of these categories. But thank you all so much for watching. I hope you are staying healthy and staying safe, and I'll catch y'all next time. See ya!